Why punishment backfires. Science explained. Your dog just chewed the couch. You yell. He cowers, ears flat, tail tucked, eyes wide. And in that moment, most people feel a strange sense of relief. He knows what he did wrong. Except he doesn't. Not in the way you think. What you're watching isn't guilt. It isn't understanding. It's fear. And the science behind that fear reveals something that could change the way you train your dog forever. Because in almost every case, punishment doesn't just fail to fix the problem. It actively makes it worse. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why and what to do instead. Why this matters more than you think. Punishment-based training has been around for generations. Choke chains, alpha rolls, loud scolding, spray bottles. It's been passed down as common sense, dog to owner, for decades. The logic seems simple. The dog does something wrong. You make the experience unpleasant. The behavior stops. But here's the misconception at the heart of it all. Stopping a behavior in the moment is not the same as teaching a dog what to do instead. A dog that flinches and freezes isn't learning a lesson. He's suppressing an action because something scary just happened. Those are two completely different processes happening in the brain, and only one of them builds a well-behaved, emotionally secure dog. Researchers who study canine behavior have spent the last 2 decades trying to answer a very specific question. Does punishment actually work? Or does it just look like it works? The answer, backed by a growing body of evidence, is uncomfortable for a lot of dog owners. But understanding it is the first step toward a completely different and far more effective relationship with your dog. The science. What's actually happening in your dog's brain. To understand why punishment backfires, you have to understand how dogs learn in the first place. Dogs are constantly building associations, not moral judgments, associations. A dog doesn't think chewing furniture is wrong. A dog's brain links a specific stimulus to a specific consequence. If yelling happens shortly after chewing, in theory, the dog could associate the two. But there's a catch. Dogs are far more likely to associate punishment with whatever is most obvious and immediate in their environment, which is often you, not the act you're trying to correct. This is where it gets interesting. A 2020 study published in the journal Applied Animal Behavior Science, led by researcher Ana Catarina Vieira de Castro, followed dogs at training schools that used either reward-based methods or aversive methods, including leash corrections and verbal reprimands. The dogs trained with aversive techniques showed measurably higher stress-related behaviors during training and, notably, higher cortisol levels, a hormone directly tied to stress, even outside of training sessions. That's the key detail people miss. It's not just that punishment feels harsh in the moment, it's that it produces a physiological stress response that lingers. Dogs trained this way are, essentially, living in a state of heightened alert around the person meant to be their safest bet in the world. There's also a timing problem that most owners don't realize. For an association to form the way we intend, the consequence needs to happen within about 1 to 2 seconds of the behavior. Scold a dog for something he did 5 minutes ago, a classic "he made a mess while I was out" scenario, and there's no meaningful link being formed. What you're actually punishing is whatever the dog is doing right now, which is usually greeting you at the door. What your dog is really communicating. That cowering, guilty-looking posture, head low, ears back, avoiding eye contact, is one of the most misread signals in the entire canine communication system. It's not guilt. Dogs don't have the cognitive architecture for retrospective moral reasoning the way humans do. What you're seeing is called an appeasement display. It's your dog reading your body language and tone in real time, tense posture, raised voice, quick movements, and responding the only way his instincts know how. By trying to diffuse the tension and signal, "I am not a threat, please stop." This matters because it means the guilty look tells you almost nothing about whether your dog understands what he did. It tells you he's picked up on your mood. In fact, In a well-known 2009 study by researcher Alexandra Horowitz, dogs displayed the exact same guilty body language, whether or not they had actually done anything wrong. The behavior appeared simply because the owner believed the dog was guilty and acted accordingly. The dog was responding to the human, not the crime. So what is your dog actually trying to tell you in these moments? Something closer to, something about this situation feels unsafe, and I need it to stop. That's a very different message than the one most owners believe they're receiving. Common myths about punishment and discipline. Myth: dogs misbehave out of spite or defiance. This idea persists because it maps human motivations onto dog behavior. But there's no strong evidence that dogs plan behavior around getting back at someone. What looks like spite is almost always anxiety, boredom, an unmet need, or a behavior that's simply been reinforced by accident in the past. Myth: dominance explains most behavior problems. For years, alpha and pack leader framing shaped how people approached training, largely based on outdated studies of captive, unrelated wolves, animals forced together, not living as a natural family unit. Wild wolf packs, later research showed, function more like families, led by breeding parents, not by animals constantly fighting for rank. Applying that flawed dominance model to dogs led to a wave of punishment-heavy techniques built on a foundation that didn't hold up. Myth: a firm hand now prevents bigger problems later. The data suggests the opposite trend in many cases. A widely cited 2009 survey by veterinary behaviorist Megan Herron and colleagues found that confrontational training methods, hitting, growling at a dog, forcing it into submissive positions, were associated with aggressive responses in a substantial number of dogs, sometimes directed right back at the owner. Where the evidence is genuinely mixed, not every dog responds to punishment identically, and some milder forms of interruption, a clap, a firm no used sparingly, haven't been shown to cause the same dramatic stress responses as physical corrections. The research community's concern centers specifically on aversive, fear-based, or physically confrontational methods, not on every form of boundary setting. What you should actually do. The alternative isn't permissiveness, it's precision. Catch the behavior you want, not just the one you don't. Reward-based training works because it tells the dog exactly what to repeat. Punishment only tells him what to avoid, and leaves him guessing at everything else. Manage the environment before you manage the dog. Many problem behaviors are really access problems. A dog who countersurfs isn't defiant. He's found food within reach. Removing the opportunity does more than any correction ever will. Watch for stress signals, not just bad behavior. Lip licking, yawning outside of tiredness, whale eye, and tucked tails are your dog's early warning system. Responding to these before frustration builds prevents the situations that lead to punishment in the first place. Redirect instead of react. If a dog jumps on guests, teaching an incompatible behavior, like sitting for greetings, replaces the unwanted action with a rewarded one, rather than just suppressing it. Give corrections context, not just consequence. If you must interrupt a behavior, follow it immediately with guidance toward the right one. A sharp no that isn't followed by direction teaches a dog what not to do without ever showing him what to do. Surprising facts that change the picture. Here's something most owners never consider. The same 2020 study on training methods found that dogs from aversive method schools were also less optimistic in cognitive testing, meaning they were more pessimistic about ambiguous situations, a marker researchers use to measure animal welfare and emotional state. In simple terms, the dogs weren't just stressed during training. Their overall outlook on life had shifted. Compare that to wolves, dogs' closest wild relatives. Wolf researchers have long noted that stable, low-conflict family units, not punishment and dominance battles, are what keep wild packs functioning. Domestication didn't remove that blueprint from dogs. If anything, thousands of years of living alongside humans built an even deeper reliance on trust and social bonding. Since dogs have evolved to read human faces and gestures with an accuracy no other species, including our closest primate relatives, can match. And here's a detail that surprises almost everyone. Puppies as young as 6 weeks old have been shown in research to already respond to human pointing gestures, a social skill that even adult chimpanzees typically fail to grasp. Dogs are, from nearly the beginning of life, wired to look to us for information. Punishment interferes with the very system that makes that connection possible. The final takeaway. Punishment might stop a behavior for a moment, but underneath that silence is a dog who's learned something very different from the lesson you intended. Not, don't do that, but you are unpredictable, and I need to be careful around you. The science is consistent on this point. Dogs raised on trust and clear communication aren't just better behaved. They're more confident, more resilient, and more securely bonded to the people who care for them. The more we understand what our dogs are actually telling us, the less we need to control them, and the more naturally they choose to follow us anyway.